Storms in the Viking world did not arrive suddenly. They announced themselves long before the first rain touched the ground. The wind shifted direction, moving lower and heavier across the land. Clouds gathered thick and dark, pressing close to the mountains and the sea. The air grew colder, sharper, carrying the scent of salt and wet earth. People noticed. In Viking communities, weather was never ignored. It was not background noise. It was information. When the signs appeared, daily life adjusted without discussion. Work outside slowed. Tools were brought in. Loose objects were secured. No one rushed. No one panicked. Storms were expected. Viking homes were built with this knowledge in mind. Longhouses sat low against the ground, their shapes stretched rather than tall. They were not built to stand proudly against the sky. They were built to endure. Thick walls of timber, stone, and packed earth absorbed the force of the wind. Roofs layered with wood and turf held rain instead of letting it rush inside. As the first rain began to fall, people moved indoors. Doors were closed carefully, not slammed, secured. Inside the longhouse, the atmosphere shifted. The fire at the center of the home burned steadily, its glow soft but reliable. Before storms, the fire was never allowed to weak. Someone adjusted it slowly, adding dry fuel that had been prepared days earlier. Storms were not the time to experiment. Fire was watched closely during bad weather. It was the heart of the house. Rain intensified outside. The sound changed from scattered drops to a constant pressure. Water slid across the roof, soaked into the turf, and ran down the walls. Inside, voices lowered naturally. People did not speak loudly during storms, not out of fear, but out of habit. Storms demanded attention, not resistance. Men settled near the fire, repairing tools, sharpening blades, or preparing equipment for the days ahead. Storms were not idle time. They were preparation time. Women worked nearby, mending clothing and checking supplies. Wet garments were placed close to the fire, turned carefully to dry evenly. Wool and leather held moisture, and care mattered. An elder sat slightly apart, listening, not to conversation, but to the house itself. He listened to the way the roof responded to the rain, to the sound of wind moving over the structure, to the creaks and shifts that signaled strength, not weakness. A good Viking house spoke during storms. Silence meant danger. Sound meant the house was alive and holding. Food was prepared slowly. Meals during storms were warm and simple. Stews made from preserved meat and grains simmered quietly. Nothing extravagant, nothing wasted. Eating together was important. Storms were not faced alone, even inside the home. Outside, the storm grew heavier. Wind pressed harder against the walls. Rain found every surface. But inside the longhouse, life continued. People worked. People waited. People trusted the shelter they had built and maintained together. Storms did not bring chaos into Viking homes. They brought focus. As the night approached and the storm settled in, the longhouse became a place of patience, routine, and shared endurance. This was how storms were met, not with fear, not with defiance, but with readiness. As the storm settled in for the night, time inside the Viking longhouse began to stretch. Outside, darkness came early. Clouds erased the last light from the sky, and the wind continued to move across the land without pause. Rain struck the roof in steady waves, no longer sharp but heavy and constant. Inside, the fire became brighter by contrast. It was never allowed to flare wildly. A fire that burned too high, consumed fuel too quickly, and invited danger. Instead, it was kept low and controlled, its warmth spreading slowly through the longhouse. Someone was always responsible for it, not as a god, but as a caretaker. Firekeeping during storms was a quiet task. Fuel was added carefully, timed with the rhythm of the night. Too much wood brought smoke. Too little invited cold. People rotated this responsibility naturally. No one asked. No one announced it. Men settled closer to the walls, leaning against wooden supports or resting on low benches. Their movements were slow, deliberate. Storm nights were not for unnecessary motion. Women arranged sleeping spaces and supplies, ensuring everything needed for the night was within reach. Blankets were adjusted. Tools were placed nearby. Nothing was left to chance. During storms, preparation mattered more than comfort. Conversation continued, but softly. Voices stayed low, often dropping into silence between short exchanges. People spoke only when words were useful. Storms taught restraint. An elder broke the silence occasionally, not with long speeches, but with observations. He spoke about weather patterns, about storms remembered from years past. His words were not dramatic. They were grounding. Storms did not need interpretation. They needed patience. As the wind pushed harder against the walls, the longhouse responded. Wood creaked. Beams shifted slightly. The structure settled under pressure. This sound did not cause alarm. It was expected. Viking homes were built to move, not to resist completely. Rigid structures failed. Flexible ones endured. People listened to these sounds carefully. Each creak told a story about stress and balance. Each shift confirmed that the house was doing what it was meant to do. Food was eaten slowly. Warm bowls were passed from hand to hand. No one hurried through a meal during storms. Eating was both nourishment and reassurance. Storm nights were long. The body needed warmth and energy. After eating, people settled into rest in stages. Not everyone slept at once. Some lay down early, wrapped tightly in wool, their breathing slow and steady. Others remained awake, eyes open, listening to the storm and the fire. Sleep during storms was lighter, not anxious but aware. Someone always remained half awake, ready to respond if the fire weakened or the wind changed. This was not fear. It was responsibility. Outside, the storm showed no signs of stopping. Rain continued to soak the land. Wind moved across the roof, sometimes louder, sometimes quieter. Inside, the longhouse remained steady. The air smelled of smoke, damp wood, and wool. It was a familiar scent. Storms did not feel new. They felt remembered. Over time, exhaustion replaced alertness. Bodies relaxed. Breathing slowed. The fire continued its steady rhythm, watched and maintained. The house held, and through the long hours of darkness, Viking homes became more than shelter. They became shared spaces of endurance, places where patience was practiced, where responsibility was quiet, where survival was collective. The storm outside could be violent and relentless. Inside, calm was chosen again and again. Morning arrived quietly during storms. There was no sunrise to mark the change. No clear line between night and day. Only a subtle shift in the air and the rhythm of the fire. The storm often continued. Rain still pressed against the roof. Wind still moved across the land. Slower now, but no less present. The outside world remained gray, wet, and uncertain. Inside the longhouse, people woke gradually. Not all at once, not abruptly. Bodies adjusted slowly, stiff from long hours of rest on hard surfaces. Muscles stretched. Breathing deepened. The fire was checked first. Someone had already tended it during the early hours, ensuring it survived the night. A few pieces of dry fuel were added carefully, bringing warmth back into the space. Mourning during storms was not about starting fresh. It was about continuing. Women moved quietly, checking supplies and clothing. Garments that had dried overnight were turned, inspected, and folded. Anything still damp was repositioned closer to the fire. Dryness mattered. Wet clothing during storms weakened the body faster than hunger. Men stepped carefully around the longhouse, inspecting walls, roof supports, and door frames. No dramatic damage was expected, but small signs mattered. A shift in a beam, water pooling near an edge, a draft where there had been none. Storms rarely destroyed Viking homes outright. They tested them slowly. These checks were routine. No one complained. No one expressed frustration. Storms were not interruptions to life. They were part of it. Food was prepared again, simple and warm. Morning meals during storms were practical. Something hot to steady the body. Something filling to prepare for waiting. People ate quietly, listening to the weather as much as to each other. Conversation focused on observation. How strong the wind had been overnight. Whether the rain felt lighter. How long the storm might last. These were not guesses. They were assessments based on experience. Elders shared brief comments, not predictions. Storms followed patterns, but never schedules. Outside work remained limited. No one rushed out to challenge the weather. Storms demanded respect, not defiance. Those who needed to step outside did so carefully, wrapped tightly against the cold and rain. They moved with purpose and returned quickly. The longhouse remained the center of life. Time inside passed slowly, but not aimlessly. Tools were adjusted, supplies were reorganized, small repairs were made. Storms were moments to strengthen what already existed. The sound of rain became background again, no longer sharp or alarming. It blended with the fire, with footsteps, with breathing. Fatigue settled in, but it was managed. Storms drained energy quietly. People recognized this and responded by slowing down. Rest was taken without guilt. Waiting was accepted. This acceptance was one of the most important lessons Viking life offered. You could not force a storm to end. You could only endure it well. Inside the longhouse, endurance was shared. No one carried the weight alone. As the day stretched on, small changes in the weather were noted. A shift in wind direction, a softening of rain. Hope was quiet, not celebrated. Storms ended when they ended. Until then, life continued at a different pace. Inside Viking homes, storms did not create panic or disorder. They created patience, and patience, practiced again and again, became strength. Storms in the Viking world rarely ended suddenly. They loosened their grip slowly. Rain softened first, shifting from heavy pressure to scattered drops. Wind lost its sharp edge, moving higher above the land instead of cutting across it. The sound on the roof changed, becoming lighter, less demanding. Inside the longhouse, people noticed immediately. Not with excitement, with calm recognition. The fire was adjusted once more, allowed to burn a little higher now that the danger of damp air had passed. Warmth spread more evenly through the space. Bodies responded. Shoulders relaxed. Breathing deepened. Tension that had been held quietly through the night began to ease. People did not rush outside to celebrate the end of the storm. They waited. Storms had taught them caution. Men inspected the interior again before stepping out. They checked the roof supports, the walls, the door frame. Only when everything felt right did anyone open the door fully. The outside world revealed itself slowly. The land was soaked. Paths were heavy with mud. The air smelled clean, sharp, and cold. But the house had held. This mattered more than the weather itself. Inside, the longhouse showed signs of shared endurance. Clothing had dried. Supplies were intact. The fire remained alive. Storms tested many things. They tested construction. They tested preparation. But most of all, they tested people. Inside Viking homes, storms exposed habits. Those habits determined survival. No one claimed credit for keeping the fire alive. No one praised themselves for enduring the night. It was understood that survival was collective. Responsibility had been shared quietly. Attention had been constant but calm. This was the strength of Viking life. Not aggression, not dominance, endurance. Storms did not break Viking homes because they were never built to stand alone. Every structure depended on maintenance. Every person depended on others. The longhouse was not just wood and turf. It was cooperation made physical. When the storm passed fully and work outside resumed, life did not change dramatically. People returned to tasks with the same steady pace. There was no sense of victory. Storms were not enemies defeated. They were forces endured. And endurance shaped character. Living through repeated storms taught patience. It taught restraint. It taught people to conserve energy and focus on what mattered. Inside Viking homes, storms slowed life down to its essentials. Warmth, food, shelter, presence, nothing extra, nothing wasted. This is why storms did not weaken Viking communities. They strengthened them. Each storm reinforced routines. Each long night deepened trust. Each shared responsibility made the next storm easier to face. Long after the rain stopped, the lessons remained. Do not rush. Do not panic. Do not stand alone. Inside those longhouses, generation after generation learned the same quiet truth. Nature does not need to be conquered. It needs to be respected. And when respect is paired with preparation and cooperation, even the harshest storms lose their power. This was what happened inside Viking homes during storms. Not chaos, not fear, but calm, practiced endurance.